I was raised in the echoes of sermons and signs, told who I was, what to believe, how to walk the line. Kneeled at the altar, searching for grace, but all I found was fear wrapped up in faith. But something deep inside kept calling me. A whisper in the dark said you are free. Not in the rules, not in the chains, but in the love that calls my name. Learning to love myself, trust myself, even when I think I'm wrong. Learning to be set free, learning to be, learning just to be. No longer bound by the weight of my past. Took off the guilt, let it burn in the ash. I don't need permission to stand in the light. God ain't a place, God is inside. God is inside. Something deep inside keeps calling me. A whisper in the dark says you are free. Not in the rules, not in the chains, but in the love that knows my name. Learning to love myself, trust myself, even when I think I'm wrong. Learning to be set free, learning to be, learning just to be. Deep inside keeps calling me. A whisper in the dark says you are free. Not in the rules, not in the chains, but in the love that knows my name. Learning to love myself, trust myself, even when I think I'm wrong. Learning to be set free, learning to be, learning to love myself, trust myself. Just to be.
Hey. What's up? Make sure y'all liking, sharing. Come on. A gift of love, a gift of peace. But I know beyond belief is still out there. I see that you guys are still viewing. It's not over. The book. Some little trinkets that you guys are gonna get. I listen to this music for myself. I hope y'all ready. Miss Deidre, who's in the room?
Let's see. This evening, we've got Mother White. Mother White, how are you? Good to see you. Miss Marie, one of our loyal followers and members of the community. Thank you. And we have Miss Gwen.
Thank you. Yes.
Yeah, so everybody's coming in. Again, don't forget to like and share. Because we started promptly at 9:30, so people might still be doing their
they're rolling for some reason. They like to,
struggling late. Hang out late night.
They come in late.
And then we got Tia. Tia's here. Hi sis, how you doing?
Just like loving. Hey, this is, for a while there, I was thinking, you know what? This is deconstructing music. Is there any other artists I have to ask you, of deconstructing music?
I don't think they call it deconstructing music. I don't think they call it deconstructing. I don't think they call it deconstruction.
I mean, they wouldn't have it.
Only person I could think of maybe Molly Music when he was doing his thing a little bit, maybe, but they wouldn't have called it deconstructing.
No, but
I know
the lyrics are like, I no longer.
It's the intention. Yes, it's the intention behind the lyrics. It's the lyrics that matter. Yeah, I agree.
I no longer believe what I know. I'm living my life.
What am I living my life to do?
Lay down the guilt, lay down the fear.
I haven't heard the talking about stuff. You know why? Just let love in. Woo. Man, we're gonna get on with this because this is gonna be fun.
In case you're wondering how to get a copy, you can go to Malachi's Bandcamp.
Yeah.
And look up Beyond Belief.
And also, if they have to go to Malachi Grove, very first thing on the screen, I did that on purpose. Very first thing.
Yes.
Woo, man. I'm glad. Thank you, everyone, for being here. And we're going to get right into this. Make sure you like, share. I need to share this to my own wall so that we can really get into this. This is Brother Keith. Of course, I had him on before he owned this station. And also, of course, we had him with Bishop. I was just reminiscing not too long ago with, I guess I can't share it. When I went out to Deep South Tulsa, and it was Misfits Theology. And it was really neat. That's how I met Keith. Me, Bishop, Ron, my friend Ron, and Mike Williams. We were all in a car. We went to Misfits Theology, and it was the most amazing thing and experience. It's a little different, I don't know if that was on video or not, but it was like just to have 4 or 5 speakers that talk theology, and it was a bit different, if you will. It's distracted me. A bit different, and I thought that was so really neat. And honestly, that was kind of a message in terms of for me that was like unique and different, is for us to be able to have these conversations and understand that theology, God, our beliefs don't have to be what they've always have been. We now have individual people such as Brother Keith Giles who have a understanding or a background, if you will, and be able to really dissect and understand not just the teachings that we've been taught, but also understand way more in terms of society and understand things within our government. So if you haven't got a chance, make sure that you get a chance to Google Keith, because there's still some great videos out there of Keith and some of the things. The true teachings of Jesus have the potential to destroy Christianity as we know it. That's some title that a person put, but I think it's beautiful. And this is his latest book that we're going to be reviewing and talking about this evening. One of the things that I would like to say also is that with so many different things going on within our country specifically, let alone the world, is that make sure you are tapping into some level of peace. Don't make everything that you do out to be
I think Coach might have froze there for a second. Let's see if we get him back. Hopefully, let's see if we get him back. 1 second. So Coach was saying before that the hiccup was that with everything going on, it's really chaotic and it can be really jarring. So you need to be able to tap into peace, tap into things that ground you, things that make you happy, things that give you joy. If you have to disconnect from the news is a toxic cycle. There's Coach. Okay. I was starting to chime in for you.
You got it. It was the devil.
The devil was in the devil. Just the devil.
It happens, you know.
We know.
What we got to do is we got to fight against it.
We got to bind the devil. Bind him. That's what we used to do. Okay, I'll turn it back over to you.
Thank you, Miss D. But anyways, let's just go ahead and get this going. I had another video queued up that I was going to play just so you see it. But let's just get this going on, right? So make sure you guys like, share, and what we're going to be, here we are. We're going to be discussing, there's his book. And we got here Brother Keith. That is his latest book. Oh, that's his quantum series of books, which is a little different. But this latest version, if you get a chance, Deidre can upload that for me. The last one was the Quantum Sayings of Jesus, which that's done really well. Tell me a little bit, following up on that particular book. Like, I know it's done really well.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Coach Malachi. Thanks for bringing me on. I really appreciate the chance to come back and talk about this stuff. Yeah, that book, the Quantum Sayings of Jesus from the Lost Gospel of Thomas. I wrote that book over a year ago, and that was probably the 7th, 8th, probably like the 12th or 13th book I have ever written or published with Choir anyway, with a publisher. And my other books have done well, but man, nothing like that. Nothing like this Quantum Sayings of Jesus book about Thomas. That book, it was number one before it even came out a year ago. It stayed number one for almost an entire year. And now it's like last I just checked it this morning, it was like number 2, number 3, something like that on Amazon under the mysticism and spirituality category. I've just never had a book that has exploded like this one. And I think what that tells me is that I think people they're ready for something like this, right? I think a lot of people are very tired of organized religion. They're tired of a God that doesn't really love everybody. They're tired of a version of Jesus that isn't for everyone, that's only for certain groups of people. And I think, there's just something, I guess there's kind of honestly, I spent time trying to figure it out, like why this book has taken off and just been so well received. It probably is also, I think, that people want Jesus. They just don't want the judgment. They don't want the, all the baggage that comes with Jesus in most church settings. And the Gospel of Thomas is, it's just the sayings of Jesus, and they really do set people free. So yeah, I've just been very, very happy, really blown away with how this book has been received. Very grateful for all the people that have reviewed it and shared it and sent me messages to tell me how much this book has helped them. So very grateful for that. So
Testimonial.
yeah.
So what has
Yeah.
I think the testimonials, what are some of the things people have said,
Mm.
that, because I think that's where a lot of the answers are.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, well, I read through the comments, and when I get messages from people, I've had people tell me that everything from it's helped them to understand Thomas. I have a lot of people tell me that they tried to read Thomas, on their own, and it made no sense to them. Or they have read it before and they thought they understood it, but then when they kind of read it through this lens of oneness and connection and this quantum theology, then it just came alive for them. And I think the main thing, which is the kind of the takeaway of the book, is this idea that everyone's included, everyone is connected to God. Nothing will ever separate any of us from God, and and it's such a freeing, joyful, liberating, message. It really is good news, right? It really is. It's the best news. It's what the gospel is supposed to be. And when I keep saying, I think I said it when I was on this show last time, and every time I talk about this quantum gospel of Thomas and now the gospel of Mary, I just keep saying I think it's the answer to everything. Jesus talks about love your neighbor as yourself, and love your enemy, and care for the orphan and the widow and the poor, and all these kind of things. And that's only one side of the conversation. If you really understand what Jesus is saying in the Gospel of Thomas, and you really understand that what he's saying is that there is never, has never been, and never will be any separation between you and God, that God and Christ are within you. The truth is not external to you, it's within you. Like Jesus says, right, the kingdom of God is within you. Your connection to God is within you. And so when you understand that, that's beautiful, right? Wow, there's nothing separating me from God. And Paul says this in Romans, nothing could ever separate you from God. No height, no depth, not the future, not the past, not an angel, not a demon, not even death. Nothing will ever separate you from God and the love of God. So that's phase one. But then the second thing that should eventually kind of blow your mind once you really meditate on that, your oneness with God, there's no separation between you and God, is that it's not just true of you, it's true of everyone on this planet. Actually, anyone who's ever lived or ever will live. We are all connected to the same God. The same Christ is within all of us. And that means we're all connected to one another. So there's no separation between me and you, or me and anyone else either. And then, so I say it's the answer to everything, because I think once humanity really understands this and starts to live out of that reality, out of that truth, this is how it makes it possible for us to love our neighbor as ourselves. Because when I look at my neighbor, I don't see myself. I mean, I don't see my neighbor, I see myself, right? I don't see another person, I see myself. It's how I can love my enemy. Because again, when I look at my enemy, I don't see an enemy. I see Christ reflected in that person. I see myself reflected in that person. And this idea of a shared divinity and a shared humanity between all of us, I think it's the end of poverty. It's the end of racism. It's the end of genocide. It's the end of all of these voices in the world right now that are trying to convince us that we are separated from one another, right? Everything right now, gosh, you cannot be on social media and not constantly be bombarded with this idea that it's us versus them. It's Democrats versus Republicans. It's Christians versus Muslims. It's men versus women. It's whatever, right? You just fill in the blank. But it's, there's like this, and again, you understand this is an industry. You understand that people make a whole lot of money and maintain a whole lot of power by convincing millions of people that the problem is those people over there. And so the more they can convince us that we are not connected to one another, that we are separated from one another, the more power we're giving to those people, to these forces, to these powers in the earth and in the air. We're giving them power over us and over the planet, really. But we can take that power back by recognizing that they're liars. That is not the truth. That is not reality. What Jesus tells us is, Jesus tells us what the reality is. Reality from God's perspective is that you have never been separated from God. Paul even says that. Paul says that at one time you were separated from God in your mind, not for real, not in God's mind, in your mind. And, Jesus came to change our mind about God, not to change God's mind about us. God sees the truth. God sees us and knows us, that we are all connected. There is no separation. We need to awaken to that. And again, I think as people have read this book, The Quantum Sayings of Jesus, and they're waking up to that reality, it really does make a difference in your real life, in your everyday life. You start not buying into and not believing this us and them story. And I think that's what sets us free.
You just simply talking, but you just have no idea. Like it's like a chant.
Yeah.
And meditation.
Mm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think it's a new, not a new, but the evolution of preaching, the evolution of connecting, right? There's something out there that we haven't tapped in and tuned in, and we think what we've done in the past is the greatest that we've done, but we don't know what the future holds. And a lot of these things that we are experiencing has a lot also to do with
that's right,
the evolution of humanity.
That's right. I totally agree. I think it really has a lot to do with the evolution of humanity. And there's something I wrote about it in my book, Sola Deus. There's something about, I didn't invent this, I just discovered it and kind of explained it. There's something called spiral dynamics, and several different people have written about it and talked about it. But essentially what it is, it's documenting human evolution, right? We can go back in time and we can see the earliest humans were very primitive, very tribal, very, very much, all about themselves, very egocentric. And then we can see different ages and times in human history where we made sort of shifts in human consciousness, where then we realized, well, it's not just about me personally, right? I also have my family to take care of. And then it goes from families to tribes. And then it goes from tribes to, nations. And then from nations to people groups, right? And just kind of keeps expanding and expanding and expanding. We are only in the last 100 years, we're now in a level of human consciousness where we're recognizing that this tribalism thing doesn't make any sense, that really we're all on the same planet. We have to live. This is all our home, and we need one another. And that when one of us, flourishes, we all flourish. And one of us is free, we're all free. And in fact, until we're all free, none of us is free. And that's another level of consciousness that becomes raised. And we can document this throughout human history, that humanity has gone through these levels of awakening and consciousness. It always is, every shift in human consciousness is always, what am I trying to say? It's sort of like, there's usually an individual or maybe a couple of individuals who they have the awakening first, right? An individual will and everyone of course looks at them and says, what's wrong with you? How can you see the world this way? This isn't the way the world is. How can you believe this? And so some people might go, oh, that's interesting. And they might lean in, but what happens is, honestly, we can see it throughout history. These people that have this shift, this awakening into the next level, the kind of, their mind kind of leapfrogs up into the next level of human consciousness. And then they start talking about what they see. Those people get killed, right? Those people get persecuted and beaten and arrested and ultimately killed. And in some ways, like maybe that has to happen. I don't know, until it's sort of like, then we dwell on it. We think about it. We start really thinking about what were they saying? What were they trying to communicate? And then eventually enough people kind of shift humanity into, oh, wow, they were right. And then now we can go to the next level. And so, there's the ultimate level really is the sort of Christ consciousness, which is this realization, which is what is in Thomas. It's what's in the Gospel of Mary. It's in all these texts, that this idea that there is no separation between us and God, and that we're all humanity, all the universe is connected. And quantum science is already, they're starting to figure this out as well. That's what's so amazing to me, is quantum physics is starting to prove that the universe is one thing. They call it the quantum field. They would say the quantum field is everything, and everything is an expression of the quantum field. So that means even though things, we perceive things as being separate, at the quantum level, the reality is there is no separation. Everything is one thing, and that's the quantum field. But in mystical terms, right, we would say everything is Christ, and Christ is everything, or everything is consciousness, and consciousness is everything. Again, you can change the terms, but the truth is undeniable. And now quantum physics, quantum science is proving it. This is reality. And that's super exciting. I think that's the other reason. I think when people are reading these kind of texts, they're seeing Jesus 2,000 years ago knew this stuff. He was keyed in, right? He was tuned into that frequency. He was speaking this truth. And it's taken, 2,000 years for scientists to go, yeah, actually, that is reality. That is the way things are. That's pretty amazing.
I think it's all divine in the sense, in the essence of who we are as what's the purpose of it all, right? As the universe is experiencing itself.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
The purpose of it all is for that. But the thing I think for us, what is the purpose of us in this essence of walking it out and being able to see it through, even though there's been so much pain, right? In the perception of life, right?
Yeah.
There's a lot of pain, and there's a lot of pain that we deal with today. But I think the pain that we see today and what we deal with is no different than any other pain, in the sense that pain is pain.
Yeah.
It's just the evolution. I'm glad we're not doing the medieval thing with human beings, or some of the things that happened during whether civil rights or slavery, but we still can see and witness some of these things throughout the world that are lingering within the consciousness, right?
Yeah.
These medieval minds and the structure of who we are. It's like we still have the humanities with the animalistic nature to, no different than us procreating, like, and now we're moving into a space where we're understanding that we are here to do that. It reminds me what you're talking about. It reminds me of, this is one of my favorites, Conscious Evolution with Barbara Marx Hubbard.
Yeah.
And she talks about where do we, essentially talking about where do we go from here, in the evolution of, this is a page where she's talking about the evolution of humanity.
Oh, wow.
Right.
Great.
And essentially it's like in education and government and economics, health, relationships. And what's interesting is, like, which is the goal of Peter Thiel and Elon Musk and everyone else, is is the Silicon Valley way. We're going to break it. And it's, man, it hurts, because it's like, even though they want to break it for it to go their way, it's still something that I think that's whether I think it needs to happen or don't think it needs to happen, it's happening.
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. I think I was having a conversation on my podcast a few months ago, and a wonderful lady, her name is Mary Terhune. She wrote this great book called Out of the Blue, and Inquire, just my publishing company, we just actually recently republished an updated version of it. This is one that a book that initially, who Wayne Dyer is. Wayne Dyer actually had read the book and loved it, and was, but right before he passed, he was going to actually go on a tour with her to talk about some of the concepts in her book, and then sadly he died right before that. So she never got that, right? It sort of like was kind of waiting, this book kind of waiting for people to discover it. And anyway, I was talking to her, and in this conversation I'm having with her, I was talking about what you just said, right? I was talking about the suffering and the pain and the darkness and the struggle, and things right now seem to be getting darker and darker and darker. But then she kept talking about this awakening that's happening right now, this awakening that we're all experiencing right now, and this awakening that's obvious right now. And I just finally said, Mary, I hear you saying it like it's happening now. I mean, I feel like we need it. I feel like it's obvious that we really need an awakening, but I don't see it. And she said, "Oh, Keith, it is all the suffering you're seeing. That's the beginning of it, right? It's the birth pangs. We are in the womb right now. And what you're experiencing are these contractions, all this pain, all these horrible things that are happening. In fact, even some of the people who are creating the suffering themselves are the very ones who are beginning to think to themselves in the dark when they're all alone. They think to themselves, there's got to be a better way. This doesn't feel right. There's something wrong about this, right? And so we have to unfortunately get through this season, this difficulty, this pain, and we don't like it. We wish it would go away, but actually, it is necessary, right? It's what it's going to wake us up and make us realize that we need something better. We need better answers, better solutions, better stories to tell ourselves about who God is and who we are. And so I'm trying to hold on to that myself. Like, okay, I don't see it. I'm trying to believe it, that this is the beginning of the thing that humanity needs. It could be really bad. It could get really painful. Who knows?
It's going to get painful.
Yeah.
But the thing is the power, and we'll get back to your call. The thing is like what was used to get us here. It was like, it's kind of like the rebirth. Like if we look at Christianity and we look at belief, we have all these different reformations and different experiences. Even if we go back to the Pentecostal movement, that was just 1907, right? And if you look at all these different experiences that we would have, it's kind of like for today's time, belief is what was used even to get us here. And the thing is they used belief, the powers that be, in order to really grab people's attention.
Yeah.
One of the things that I coincided, and I'm okay on my podcast with him, but one of the things that I know about the Republican Party is they really follow a lot of the way the church goes. In that, when I grew up in church, the pastor or preacher or ministers would have something to say, and you would never, ever, ever really hear like any major disagreement. Long as they would say, a Easter sermon, the stone was rolled away, 3 days he rose again, right? He said that? Oh yeah. And they would all get excited like it was just said, right?
Yeah.
And that's the thing that I correlate the Republican Party to, is that it's like everybody has to agree. Like you have to make sure you agree. You got to make sure you agree, because if you don't agree, right, we're gonna we'll eat our own. We'll cash you out. And so being able to attract or attach to that ideology, I can attach to it, because then I can actually shift. I can do things that I want to do as long as I do that. I remember just see Peter Thiel about 4 or 5 days ago had an interview, and literally a Silicon Valley guy is talking about the Antichrist.
I saw that. Yep.
And these people are brilliant, right? Yes. They know what they're doing.
Oh, they do.
Totally. And if I talk and I get you and I talk about the Antichrist, you will allow me to do whatever I want with my technology. And so I only say that to segue into the fact that people will have to awaken, because their cognitive dissonance is going to reach a point where it's in their face, and it's happening that way more and more.
Yep.
But it's in their face, and then everything that you believed about what they have told us about, let's say, Christianity. A lot of times I say Western Christianity, but everything they talk to us about it We'll find out what there's more. There's something different. It's not just this one particular thing. And so
Yeah.
that has led us up, and this is the reason why your book, Quantum Jesus, has done really well, is because of the fact that science is science, and we know science, and more people, even in the church, are not dumbfounded to the fact that we have science and what science is doing,
Mm-hmm.
right? And now, when you have authors such as yourself are able to really bring in, when we bring science and spirituality together, I think spirituality becomes a little bit more accurate.
Yeah. Yeah. I think
I
so.
love the mystery. I'm a mystic. I
Sure.
love this space.
Mm-hmm.
But Neil deGrasse Tyson said, God doesn't until science figures it out.
Right. That's right. The answer is God until science figures out. Well, here's how it actually works. Yeah.
It figured out.
Yeah.
Quantum theology. You said quantum theology. I can't. And I'm just like, when it comes to church, I have been kind of reluctant,
Oh,
embracing. But
same here.
quantum theology is real intriguing. Now, is that a thing?
I think it's becoming a thing. Yeah, I do. I'm not the only one talking about this stuff. There's a guy, Dr. Steve McVeigh. He's written, golly, I think probably 3 or 4 books right now so far on this quantum theology stuff. He's a book called Quantum Prayer, and I can't even think of all the titles. But yeah, so I'm not the only one who's talking about this kind of stuff. A lot of other people are noticing these things. And yeah, I want to go back to what you're saying too, also about this metaphor, right? Like if you want, because it's funny you said this too, because like I was thinking about this just the other day. When I was deep into evangelical Christian churches, right, and I was like in part of these not Pentecostal but charismatic kind of churches, right? The people there would always talk about, and the pastor there, the head lead pastor they were always talking about, God, we want to see miracles. God, we want to see the power of God, work moving in our church, in our town, in our city. And they would talk about, we want to see the resurrection power. And I remember one time they said this, and I just I said, so if we're going to have a resurrection, who of us wants to die first? Because this is what you don't understand. For you to have a resurrection, one of us is going to have to die, right? But following the metaphor, right? If humanity is going to have, and we need desperately a resurrection, right? We need a resurrection of spirituality, a resurrection of humanity, a resurrection of theology. Something's going to have to die first, right? And so what we're experiencing now is the death. It is the death of one thing and the birth of something else. And so, yeah, maybe we shouldn't be too upset about it. I think ultimately in the end, whatever needs to happen is going to happen. And I think in the end, it's going to be good.
We have to keep doing what we're doing and be
Yeah.
inspired, be uplifted, and actually tap into the power, right?
Yeah.
I have had moments in church that we would feel something.
Mhm.
And the thing is those feelings usually left just as a feeling, which is
Yeah.
great.
Yeah.
But those feelings hardly ever turned into some level of manifestation,
That's right.
in the power, right?
That's right.
And my thing is, if the people that are guiding and running what we and governing us, and the
Mhm.
power is capital,
Yeah.
what kind of entity, right, that we serve or are working with, if the entity is capital,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And they're able to use this capital to influence us, to get us to right.
Yeah.
And the corporatization of America is probably one of the biggest, it is what it is, one of the biggest downfalls, but we had to do it. We have to go here,
Yeah.
right? We
Yeah.
have to experience it. But
Yeah.
now the awakening, the new enlightenment, if you will, you had the enlightenment period. And people still in the South are just still doing church where and so
Yeah. You know what you're saying too, like you're reminding me, there's I just a couple of months ago, there was a study that was done, it was published. I don't know if it was Pew Research or it was some big research company had done a massive study. And every year they do one of these. And they're showing the trend, right? So it was a bar graph, and they were showing. I think they started measuring like in 2000, I think 2004. So like in 2004, like Protestant evangelical Christians were the biggest number of the largest religious group in America, right? And there were thousands of them, hundreds of thousands of them, and then at the bottom of there were several other categories. And at the very, very bottom of the list in 2004 were people that, when they did the survey, just checked the box that said, what do you believe? What's your faith? They would check the box that said either none or done. Like I used to believe, but I don't believe anymore, right? So they ended up calling them the nuns because their answer was none or done. They were the nuns and the duns, and they were the lowest, right? So if you could follow that bar graph between 2004 and 2024, so just last year they did the survey. The largest one, evangelical Christian Protestants, was way at the bottom. They were lower than where the nuns and the duns were at the beginning of the survey, 2004. But the nuns and the duns were going up in the other direction, and now there are more of them today than there were evangelical Christians in 2004. So it's a complete reversal. And so what that tells me is that the death process is happening. More and more people are awakening. More and more people are realizing the BS, right? This is just people trying to sell us stuff. This is people trying to control us, trying to use fear and shame and guilt to get me to keep showing up and putting my butt in the seat and putting money in the plate. And, just don't ask questions, don't rock the boat, play along. Like you said, right? You gotta agree with everything that we say, or we're going to cast you out. You're out of here. And people are waking up to that. And I love that. I mean, I saw that graph and I was like, yes, good. Because when I see the people that are now saying that, that the fastest growing group of people are the ones that are saying, like, I don't want organized Christianity anymore. The mistake you would make would be to assume that those people have given up on God, have given up on the message of Jesus. I don't believe it. I've talked to many of these people. They're like, I'm closer to Jesus, I'm closer to Christ than I've ever been in my life. And I don't go to church anymore. I don't read the Bible anymore, right?
Wow.
And I think that's exactly right. Like, good for you. If the Bible isn't helping you, then don't read it. You don't have to read it if it's not helping you. But if it's something, it does bring me peace or whatever, then okay, fine. But what it is, I think, is an empowering of the individual person to make up their own mind, to be, I always say, be your own guru, right? This is what Jesus says over and over in the Gospel of Thomas. There's a saying in Thomas where Thomas calls Jesus master, and Jesus corrects him and says, I'm not your master. The whole point is that you can wake up. You can have this Christ consciousness. You yourself can, this, Jesus even says this, you do greater things than me. I'm the vine, you're the branches of me, right? But we're connected. You're connected to Christ. And so you never be separated. And so you should have your own ability to connect with God, to understand God, to have communion with God on your own without having to go through Pastor Bob or guru this or that. You don't even need a book. You know what I mean? You yourself directly can connect with this God that you're connected to, that you'll never be separated from, right? And so, that's what I see. That's what I believe is happening, is people learning to awaken to that connection that they have with God and with Christ on their own. And they don't need a church. They don't need the Bible. They don't need a pastor. They don't need a guru.
I think what people can use is guides.
Yes.
Right.
Sure. We all learn from each other. Absolutely. Yeah. I'm grateful to so many people. Like, look, I couldn't even write these books I'm writing if I wasn't reading other people's books and talking to other people and learning from them, right? There are things we all can learn. We all need to be in this place of humility, of saying, hey, I don't have all the answers. Something, what can someone teach me? What can someone show me? But at the same time, I would say, I would stop short of saying, I always tell people, please don't ever say, I believe this because Keith said. I believe this because Keith, I asked someone, I listened to a podcast, Keith Giles says he believes blah, blah, blah. And now I believe it. Don't do that. Please don't do that. You know why you shouldn't do that? Because 6 months from now, I'm going to change my mind. I'm going to go off to something else because I'm going to keep learning. I'm going to keep listening. I'm going to keep growing. I'm going to continue my connection and understanding with, trying to connect with God and deepen that connection with God and my consciousness with God. And so it's going
Mm.
to change, it's going to change. You know what I mean? So don't try to copy somebody else. Be your own guru, like, be your own person who can hear from God. And yes, learn from other people. So we need other. I'm grateful for all the guides and all the wisdom, all the people in my life that have either written books or taught me something I needed to know. We do need one another, and that's the other thing too. It's a community. There's a connection, right? There's God that we're all connected to, and there's one another. All these other expressions of the divine. We are all part of that connection, and so we need that. We need those relationships. We need those voices. And my experience can help your experience, and your experience can inform my experience. Right?
Yes. Well, we all are one, right?
Yeah.
we in the heart of it, right?
Yeah.
Literally, they have. I think that's as we get through and go through, we're going to find out the true power of who we are.
Yeah.
And people like Joe Dispenza, who I like,
Yeah. Me too.
is like actually bringing the process to connecting to the divine without even saying that, just so it doesn't scare people away.
That's right.
Right.
That's right.
So that 100% I appreciate, but we appreciate people such as yourself for being inspired. Right. I don't know if you heard some of that, but that beyond belief is something that it'd be hard not to do it, but I've used AI to write some music
Oh wow.
that is designed to literally deconstruct. Like,
Yeah.
you take me to the, it's like we're going to sing the King or whatever hymnal or whatever song you have, which
Yeah.
there's some great Christian gospel hymns that we've discovered or listened to, but Release the Blame is one of the songs. It's just being able to listen to something
Yeah.
that coincides with what we are experiencing. And so,
Yeah. I can send you some songs, by the way. I heard you talking about that. I love that song you played at the beginning. I've never heard it. It was amazing. It was beautiful. I love that song. But when you were saying, like, are there other songs like that talk about those things? I'm going to send you a YouTube playlist that I've been putting together, because like I have come across some songs that have just blown my mind, that are beautiful like that. So yeah, I'll connect you with some of those things.
super cool.
Yeah.
And I'll have to send you Beyond Belief so you can check it out. It's really
Thank
fun.
you. I loved it. Yeah, it's
It's
beautiful.
really, really, really fun. So here we are. You had the quantum sayings of Jesus, but then that has led to the quantum gospel of Mary, which in my mind is directly tied to the divine feminine.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. I mean, the Gospel of Mary it almost was like, I mean, after I did the Gospel of Thomas, I was like, what next, right? What else should I do? Because I still really love Thomas. But then my thought was, okay, I have looked at some other Nag Hammadi texts. And I think first I looked at the Gospel of Truth, and it's just so beautiful and poetic. But then immediately I was like, I've got to look at the Gospel of Mary. And I'd never read it before. So when I sat down with the Gospel of Mary and just started reading through it, I mean, the very first part of it, I read it and I said, oh my gosh, I think this has got to be the next thing I do. And then the more I read it, everything I read in it was just like the next part, the next part, the next part. Oh my gosh, it was incredible. So the Gospel of Mary, yeah, it does. It does definitely give us this female voice, right? And this is partly why this gospel was so many people fought against it. So many men in power in the church did their best to. First of all, I talk about this in the book. They tried to erase Mary Magdalene, the person, from the Gospel of John, thanks to the research of Dr. Elizabeth Schrader Pulitzer, which I reference this in the book. She's done incredible research to prove, looking at the very oldest copy of the Gospel of John that we have any copy of, that someone went in and added, scratched out a name, added a name in there, added a character in the passage, and made it so that Martha, not Mary, but because it would have been Mary Magdalene, making this Christological statement in the Gospel of John, And so they changed the tenses from single, singular text to plural because they're adding more people in. And so you think about this, why would these scribes want to erase Mary Magdalene from the Gospel of John? By the way, it wasn't just the oldest copy of John that we have in the Greek. She went to the oldest copies that we have of John in the Latin and in Coptic and other texts. And guess what? The exact same thing. You could go in and see where someone had scratched out a name, added another name, changed the tenses. Like they literally went in. This was a massive effort to literally erase Mary Magdalene's prominence from the Gospel of John. And then it's not just the Gospel of John that they want to erase Mary in. They want to erase really any women that have any prominence, like in the Gospel. I'm sorry, in Paul's letter to the Romans, at the end of the chapter, the very last chapter of Romans, Paul starts mentioning the names of all of these women in the church who are leaders in the church. And he mentions Junia, who is a woman, and he says she is outstanding among the apostles. And men, again, were so terrified of the idea that a woman could be an apostle that they changed Junia to Junius, made it a man. And for hundreds of years, they acted as if Junius was a man because they couldn't handle the idea that a woman could be an apostle, that Paul would have said her name and honored her and said that she was outstanding among the apostles. So there was a resistance among male leaderships, male bishops in the early church to diminish women, and Mary Magdalene especially. And literally the Gospel of Mary that we only have one partial copy. We're missing the first, I think, 3 or 4 chapters of it. So we don't know that we don't have the first few pages. And then we're missing a huge chunk in the middle of the Gospel of Mary. So literally, these people did their best to shred and destroy and get rid of this gospel. We only got one copy and maybe 2 fragments. One partial fragment was discovered last year and translated, which filled in one of those missing gaps, which was amazing. So that gives us hope that we might find more, or even, who knows, maybe a complete copy one day would be amazing. But yeah, you definitely will see in the Gospel of Mary this idea that Jesus honored Mary. Mary was considered an equal apostle and disciple alongside the men. And in the Gospel of Mary itself, you will see that Peter pushes back. He doesn't like the fact that he doesn't like the idea that Jesus told these things to a woman and that Jesus shared these things with Mary and not with us. So it's right there in the text. They don't hide it. They don't shy away from it. And we see that same kind of animosity, that same tension between Peter and Mary. We see it in the Gospel of Thomas. We see it in the Gospel of Philip. We see it. There's another ancient text called the Pistis Sophia that shows us the same thing. So it wasn't a secret in the early church that Peter opposed Mary Magdalene, did not like her, did not recognize her authority in the church. And we know, again, because we see all this evidence that other male leaders did what they could to get rid of the women, silence the women, and make it sort of a boys' club. And so the discovery of the Gospel of Mary is, for that, a huge gift to us to kind of restore the feminine voices of the early church, that these women, and again, it doesn't elevate them above. That's not at all what it's trying to do. It's not trying to say Mary Magdalene was better or greater. They're just trying to simply say she was equal. She was one of the other apostles, along with, the guys. So yeah, that's one of the beautiful things about the Gospel of Mary.
It's so powerful. Well, and it's so, I don't know about you, but it's really intriguing and odd. Like, whenever you grow up with all of this, and as you hear this, you're like, yeah. Like,
Yeah.
in other words, like, the Bible has been so shaped so perfectly for what the powers that be want, and then you can't come against any of it because it's like, this is God and this is God's word. So
Yep.
you can't. And the interesting thing, though, is that women never even had an experience or never had any words, or never, like, how would that make any sense?
Right. Why is God only concerned with half of the planet Earth, half of the population, right? Didn't he make male and female in his own image? Doesn't it say that in Genesis? Of course, right? God is not a respecter of persons. God is not, I'm only going to talk to this person, but not to that person. I'm not going to reveal myself. If anything, I think, women, and I would say this about Mary, because I think this is, because one of the claims in the Gospel of Mary is that Jesus did share things with Mary that he didn't share with the other male disciples, right? And I think that makes total sense, because think about it. When you see, even in Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, Jesus will say something and the male disciples, like, they do not get it. They're like, what are you talking about? Like, you have to be born again to enter the kingdom. Oh, should we become like little babies again? And like, they're just like clueless, man. They don't get it. They can't seem to think, not literally, but maybe think, metaphorically and think about this in a different way. I totally think that Mary got it, right? She responded to the things that Jesus was saying, and he was like, okay, she's able to track. She knows what I'm talking about, right? So I'm going to pull her aside. I'm going to give her a little bit more information, right? Because she's curious. She's nodding her head. Okay, yeah, she's getting it. And I think that's all it is. I think it's just that Mary's listening and she's thinking a little more creatively, and she's able to read kind of between the lines of what's being said, and she understands it, and it makes sense to her. So of course, he gives her a little bit more information. And so, yeah, I think that's all that's really happening there. But I'm noticing some of the comments. This is exactly right. Then, if you go and look at Jesus, first of all, Jesus honors women unbelievably. As no other man in Jewish culture in the first century would honors women the way Jesus does. He says, when Mary and Martha are there, we know that story, and Martha's in the kitchen making sandwiches, but Mary is seated at the feet of Jesus. Do you know that phrase? When it says that Mary is seated at the feet of Jesus, that's the language you would use to talk about a disciple. A disciple would sit at the feet of the rabbi. So when it says that Mary was seated at the feet of Jesus, and what's Jesus doing? He's teaching. And so then Martha gets upset, and what Jesus responds is, she has chosen the better thing, to be a disciple just like the other men. And then he says, what she has chosen will not be taken from her. And what makes me really upset is that male bishops and leaders later on in the church did exactly that. They absolutely did take it away from her, even though Jesus said it shouldn't be taken away from her. Paul honors women, the true Paul. There's a pseudo Paul. Not all the letters in Paul are written by Paul, but in the true Pauline letters, Paul also honors women. We wouldn't even know like Deborah and Phoebe and Lydia and all these other names of these women, Priscilla and Aquila, right? We wouldn't know who they were. We wouldn't know their names. We wouldn't know that they had all of the same giftings, by the way. We a lot of times in the church, we talk about the fivefold ministry, right? Pastors, apostles, prophets, evangelists, right? And teachers. And so you can go through the New Testament and you can find women who are prophets, who are deacons, who are apostles, who are evangelists. There are women serving at, using spiritual giftings at all five of those levels in the New Testament. And in early church history, we see it as well. Many women, in fact, the book of Romans was read by Phoebe. She carried the letter from Paul to the church in Rome, and then she stood up and read it to them out loud. So women were given prominence under Jesus and under Paul, and then real Paul. And soon after that, you see that being taken away. And it's very, very sad. It makes me angry, actually. And I've read some of these early church fathers like Tertullian, who said some of the most hateful, awful, stupid things about women. And it's very disappointing. So, yeah.
How early?
Probably late first, early second century when we start to see more of that happening. It did take a while. And again, it depends on what sort of flavor of Christianity we're talking about, right? I think I might have mentioned this last time I was here. There wasn't just one sort of brand of Christianity back then in the early church in the first century. There were lots of different groups of people who would all have said, I'm a Christian, or I follow Jesus, but they would have had slightly different understandings of who was Jesus and how do I understand his teaching and what does it mean to be a follower of Jesus and all of that. And so one of those groups, and very, very prominent groups of early Christians, were called Valentinians. The Valentinians were the ones who are responsible for the gospel of truth, by the way, which is in the book that I wrote. about the gospel of truth. The Valentinian Christians, and also they also prefer the Gospel of Thomas, right? And some of these other writings, and they're also very non-dualistic. They believed that we were all connected to God and to one another, and we know that their worship services were. In fact, this is one of the main things that, like Irenaeus and some of these other early church fathers, hated about the Valentinian Christians. They would complain about it. They'd say, like, "Oh my gosh, these Valentinian Christians! Do you know they're letting women share the communion, lead the prayer services? They're letting children, lay hands on people and pray for them and bless them." Like, they hated that because, again, in their minds, no, only the men should do this. Valentinians were like, no, we're all equal. We're all connected to God. We're all, there's no junior Holy Spirit, right? We're all connected to the same God. We all have the same Spirit of Christ living in us. So it doesn't matter who you are, how old you are, you all have Christ in you. And the Christ in you can minister and serve and use these different gifts. And I love that. I love that about the Valentinians. So, not all Christians at the time were anti-women. Not all Christians at the time only wanted men to control it. The sad thing is what we call the proto-Orthodox Christians, they're the ones in the end, who stuck it out. And then under Constantine, they were handed all the authority of Rome to make the rules for everybody else. And that's when they said, okay, these books are good and these books are bad. And this is what it means to be a Christian. And if you don't agree with us, then, we're going to persecute you. It used to be Rome persecuting the church. Now it was the church persecuting the church, which was a very bad trait.
It's like human nature comes in, right?
Yeah.
We begin to, it's like you have people that are connected to this message and to this word, but then there's still this element of the human nature, right? That is still there. And so therefore, we do what we do. Is that the Valentinians? Is that because I just learned about it's like really, what would I say? Really being able to dive deep into like Eastern versus Western.
Yeah.
That's it's like whenever I think back, I would say it had to be in my 40s. I'm 48. I'll be 49.
Yeah.
It had been in my 40s where I was able to really be like, wait, I've seen Orthodox, I heard Orthodox, but wait a minute.
Yeah.
Eastern is completely different than Western.
Very different. Yes.
And I guess they would be they sound more Eastern.
Yeah. Well, Valentinians definitely were closer to what we would call the Eastern Orthodox now. I think the Eastern Orthodox, you could probably pick up a few threads of Valentinian teaching that carried over into Eastern Orthodox Christianity. For example, Eastern Orthodox don't believe in the penal substitutionary atonement theory of the cross. They don't believe in eternal conscious torment. So yeah, there's a lot of really positive things about Eastern Orthodox. The Valentinians really only survive in the writings of Valentinus, which we only have a few letters from him and writings from him. And again, until the Nag Hammadi discovery in translated in the 1950s, we didn't have any copies of the Gospel of Truth. So we're only now, in my lifetime, right? In my lifetime, we are discovering these Valentinian Christians. And I need to say this about Valentinus, the person, because there was a guy named Valentinus for whom Valentinian Christians, are named. Here's the thing about Valentinus. Valentinus was a disciple of a guy named Theodas. And we know this again from his opponents, the people that criticized him, the people that thought he was a false prophet or whatever, right? People that did not like Valentinus, they're the ones who have told us that he was the disciple of a guy named Theodas, and that Theodas was a disciple of a guy named Paul, the apostle. And so when I see these Valentinian Christians, Valentinus only taught what his mentor, Theodas, taught him. Theodas taught what he learned from Paul. And I don't think it's a coincidence then that what we see in Valentinian Christianity is this sort of kind of Christianity that affirms things that Paul said over and over again in Colossians and Ephesians and Acts and Romans. that, that in Christ there is no male or female, Jew or Gentile, slave or free. We are all one in Christ. This Christ is the one. By the way, Paul says this to idol worshiping pagans, not to Christians. There was not a Christian in sight. And Paul stands up and tells these guys, these idol worshiping pagans, God is your father. That means you're the child of God. You don't have to pray a prayer first. You don't even have to know the name of Jesus. They didn't even say, even use Jesus' name when he said this. And he said, this God that you don't know of, this invisible God, this unknown God that you don't know who this God is. This God is your father. This God loves you. This God blesses you and hopes that you will turn and see this God. And by the way, this God is the one in whom we all live and move and have our being. Holy moly, right? What? Like I would never in my lifetime have ever heard, like, one of those guys with the megaphones that go out and stand up on the box and tell everybody you're going to burn in hell. Can you imagine if they went out there and preached with a megaphone what Paul says to these idol worshiping pagans in Athens? God loves you. You're all the children of God, and God is the one, and you all live and move and have your being right now. Even if you don't even know who this God is, you don't know who this Christ is. This Christ is in you right now. Holy moly, right? We would never say that, but it's in the Bible. It's right there. So Valentinus and Valentinian Christians, really were emphasizing that message of oneness and connection, this message of non-duality. And I think it's one of the reasons why they were so opposed by the proto-Orthodox Christians, because I'll be honest, man, it's really hard to maintain a grip, maintain a religion of control when everybody realizes they don't need you. They can connect to God already. They're already connected to God. There's nothing they have to do first to jump through a hoop to get connected to God, to be accepted by God, to be one with God. They already are, right? And so that, their message was a huge threat to those Christians, to Irenaeus and Tertullian and all those guys. So of course they opposed it, right? They didn't like that because it means, you have to have some hook, some reason why you got to come back next week and jump through the hoops again, but these Valentinian Christians were saying, hey, the good news is we're already in Christ. Christ is already in all of us. All we've got to do is awaken to that and start living like it.
Wow. I love how you are weaving in my space too with Christ consciousness, right?
Yeah.
And how it's like within that's what's beautiful to me about expanded consciousness that I rolled over from Bishop Carlton Pearson is the fact that we get to play within this whole entire space of there's of course the spiritualities, there's some psychology, there's some philosophy, and theology, but this really paints this paints a broader stroke of righteousness,
Yeah.
of love, of why wouldn't Jesus be about these things that we read? And so seeing and hearing that, so many of these stories were basically hidden or used as tools. And I mean, it's so crazy that it's like we want to try to do the same thing today is
Yes.
keep people ignorant, don't
Yes.
want people to learn, right? Or want people to be guided by content that is completely false.
Yep.
Right. And I think what we probably need to do is just the same way, like I'm doing this music, is take some of the quantum, the quantum gospel of Mary and start making some AI videos. So those people,
That would be great.
you know what I mean? Now you get to hear,
Yeah.
it is like fighting fire with the backfire, right?
That's
Fighting
right.
in a good way. It's not fire against fire in terms of like being mean, but like the backfire against a fire
That's right. Yeah.
is controlled. And so my thing is like being able to put podcasts and things like this together so that we can actually, what we say, level the playing field, because there's so much hate. There's so much direct, just hate, right?
Yeah.
That if you're not following this, if you're not this, and it's like even the word dogma becomes like you become numb to the
Yeah.
fact that, wait, dogma and brainwashing is related to psychology,
Yeah.
and you're locked in. There was something that, this is leading me to also, this is kind of, to me, the ideal of reframing God, reframing the church,
Yeah.
reframing what it is, and what does it look like in the future. And I think this is it. Like, not that you got to belong somewhere, not that you have to connect. Although I know that a lot of people want community. That's
Oh,
why
yeah. People definitely need, I think we need community. Yeah.
we do what we do what we do. And I love how you are tying in and finding, because I can't tell you, I haven't heard of anything to deal with, very little, very, very little to deal with the Gospel of Mary.
Yeah. 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 There are books out there. The truth is, a lot of them are kind of scholarly books. And so they're
Yeah,
very
yeah.
expensive, and it's sometimes hard to understand them. Like I said, I'm very grateful. I've interviewed Dr. Elizabeth Schrader Polzer a couple of times on my podcast, and I told her I was going to write this book, and she sent me all kinds of wonderful stuff, some things she hadn't even published yet, and let me look at them. And I did read a few other books that have been written on the Gospel of Mary. And the beginning of the book, I think all of these, and again, what's beautiful is they're all women. There's so many of them that are women. I think there's only like one other person that was a guy. So a lot of women have really kind of championed Mary and done incredible scholarship. And so I owe a huge debt of gratitude to all of these women who've done incredible research. And I recommend, follow them, read their books, all you can. But yeah, so it's wonderful to see people kind of getting interested in the Gospel of Mary again, and seeing, because there's some beautiful things in there. Like one of the first things in the Gospel of Mary that jumps out is, let me see if I can find this. Yeah, it's pretty amazing. Okay, so like I said, we're missing the first couple of pages of the Gospel of Mary, so we don't have the beginning of it. So it kind of starts in the middle of something. And so it seems to be what's happening is the resurrected Christ is appearing to the disciples, to the apostles, and they're asking him questions. And so it just says, will matter, so someone is asking, we don't know who asked the question. It starts with a question. Will matter then be destroyed or not? And here's how Jesus answers. And it's this mind-blowing answer to this question. Jesus says, all natures, all forms, all creatures exist in and with one another, and they will be resolved again into their own roots or their source. For the nature of matter is released into the roots of its nature. Those who have ears to hear, let them hear. So it's, again, that's an amazing statement. Number one, what he's saying is, specifically the questions about matter, right? And will it be destroyed? And he says, no, it can never be destroyed. But also the idea that everything exists in and within everything else. So again, this idea, this quantum connection. There is no separation, right? Your existence is tied to my existence. All existence is tied to the one consciousness. My consciousness and your consciousness is all connected to the one consciousness. There's only one consciousness, right? So that's amazing. But specifically this sentence, this idea that where Jesus says 2,000 years ago, that all natures, all forms, all creatures exist in and with one another, and they will be resolved again into their own source, for the nature of matter is released into the roots of its nature. It wasn't until 1789 that a French chemist named Antoine Lavoisier came up with what is known as the law of conservation of mass, which says that matter cannot be destroyed, but can only change form through physical or chemical reactions. And then Albert Einstein, right, in the 1940s, his equation E equals mc squares is also further developing this idea, what we call the theory of relativity, showing that matter can never be destroyed. It can only be converted into energy, and energy can be converted into matter, but it can never be truly destroyed. Please explain to me how a carpenter from Nazareth 2,000 years ago knows something without a scientific degree. He hasn't studied physics, but he knows. He knows how to tell them the answer to this question. And it answers it both from a spiritual perspective, this idea that, all spirit, all living things are connected to one another, exist in and with one another, and therefore they'll never be destroyed. But he specifically says matter cannot be destroyed and will always return to its source. That's how Mary starts. It's the first thing that happens in the Gospel of Mary. I told you when I read that part, I was like, oh yeah, this is
That's
going to be good.
incredible. I mean, I think too, it's like if we had a slave Bible and they pull stuff out of the slave Bible because like
Yeah.
you can have this much, we don't want you to have this.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure the entire thing has been that way, is like, just in case people want to be empowered. I mean,
Yeah.
and
Yeah. That's
so
right. Yeah.
God, I think it's revolutionary
Yes.
for us to have the ability to freely connect to these things, regardless of how many people want to deny it or people want to say that it's not the gospel.
Yeah.
Whether it be the gospel of Thomas
Yeah.
uh, or this, because I think it's uh, man, it's such a time as this. It's like it's
Yeah.
very, very needed,
Yeah.
right, in this era and time. And it makes me think about the law of attraction and The Secret.
Yeah.
And there's no secret to The Secret. You got to be able to interpret it. You got to be able to embody it, and you got to be able to understand and connect to the words.
Yeah.
And so Mary, in this essence, could have ability to allow us to embody
Yeah.
Christ consciousness versus it's
Yeah.
like, what? It's in the weeds. And it's like, what are you trying to say? Well, you have to have the priest in order to
Yeah.
get the priest to actually tell you what this mean. And it's
Mhm.
usually doom or gloom. And it makes me reflect. I think I may have had a few of this notes on the run of show, and it's just talking about women and the power. It's interesting. What would the church be without women?
Oh, exactly. Yeah. Exactly. No, it's true. And I'm so grateful that, and this is also the thing that kind of encourages me specifically about the Gospel of Mary. Because again, we've got all this evidence, all these men, they're erasing Mary Magdalene from the Gospel of John. They're trying to shut her up. They're turning Junia, the female apostle, into a man because they don't want there to be a woman. They're shredding and destroying, trying to get rid of this Gospel of Mary till there's just a little shred of it left. We don't even have the whole complete thing. Look all that they've done, all that these men have done to try to silence women, silence Mary Magdalene, silence this message that has come through women. And this is what gives me hope. They failed. They weren't able to do it, man. All that they did, all that they thought they had won. I'm sure they thought that was it. We did it. Okay, problem solved. Nope. The truth still comes out. The reality, you can't hold it back. It's like I think there's a passage I loved in one of the Old Testament passages. Is something like that love is like a mighty river, and what can hold back the flood? That's what I think the kingdom of God is. That's what I think this gospel message is. This message of oneness and connection. You can do all you can to silence it, erase it, bury it, shred it. Do all you can. You can try your best, but the beautiful thing is, you fail. Those people, everyone that tried, they failed. Here it is, 2025. We still got enough of the Gospel of Mary to know this truth, and it's still enough of that truth to set us free. So it gives me hope. They tried their best and they failed, and I think it really is time for us to elevate the voices of women. Let women have their place, their rightful place. We will learn so much from them. I've learned a lot.
I think women, honestly, I think women are more dialed into this physical world and the spiritual world together.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that because they bring life, and
Mhm.
as women are empowered, uh, especially in this space, there's the study I've done with African American spiritual churches. It was actually a thing, and
Mhm.
they begin to break off from the traditional church, and they kind of combined various practices in these churches. Uh, but it was led by women.
That's great.
Like one of the main people leading a lot were women. And when I think about spirituality, you think about Alice Bailey, um,
Mm.
and who was still coming from the Christian space
Yeah.
whenever Alice Bailey was writing. That's the Theocracy Society stuff.
Hmm.
And it's like how it was, I guess demonized.
Yeah.
And so, um,
Yeah.
heck, if you think about everything we have going on, I think it's a revolution and
Mm.
evolution
Yeah.
that women are put into a place of spiritual authority,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
And I mean, we all simply, I know, I mean, heck, that's 90% of my following. And
Yeah.
they, one of the things that I would say is having the ability to see things from a different perspective and connect and still have that care, concern, that is seemingly
Yeah.
Christ-like, probably more Christ-like
Yeah.
than what we can experience with what would you say in this, after writing this and finishing this up, what what was the profound feeling? And what was the profound teaching that you got yourself during this process?
Yeah. Yeah. Good question. Um, I guess the main kind of overall feeling that I had was hope. Um, Reading this Gospel of Mary, seeing the incredible insights that were in this gospel, it gave me hope. I mean, there's moments of being discouraged a little bit, like, man, they took the beginning. We don't have the introduction to it. We don't have the first few chapters. We don't have this middle section that seems to be really important to unlocking some of the understanding of it. But what we do have is still beautiful. It's still powerful. So I'm just very grateful. I have so much hope um, that this gospel can now be something that we can read it, we can understand it. Mary Magdalene's voice um, can be heard in spite of all the men that try to silence her. But overall, it is this idea. I think the core message, specifically the message that's really so far I've only found it in the Gospel of Mary. Um, there's something in the Gospel of Mary where Jesus says to the disciples that the child of humanity is within them. And the first time I read it, I immediately just thought, like, whoa, the child of humanity. What does that mean? And then I thought, well, wait a minute. There's this messianic title attributed to Jesus. It comes from Daniel, the book of Daniel. That this Messiah that comes, they say, he looks like the Son of Man. They call him the Son of Man. So it's sort of this messianic title. But, when Jesus in the Gospel of Mary kind of tweaks that phrase, instead of Son of Man, it's child. And instead of man, it's humanity. And Jesus is saying the child of humanity, it's not Jesus, it's you. This child of humanity is within you. And then Jesus says, the child of humanity is within you, within all of you. And then he says, seek it, listen to it, follow it. Again, this idea of you don't need anyone else. You don't even need Jesus, right? Jesus is only the one telling you the information. Jesus is only one showing you, pointing you to the truth. And this truth that this child of humanity is within you. And you can hear it, you can see it, you can follow it, and it will lead you. And that's the kind of the last thing that Jesus says before he kind of goes away. And then the rest of the Gospel of Mary is the dialogue between Mary and the other apostles. And in fact, later on, both Mary Magdalene and Levi, another apostle, refer back to that and kind of encourage one another. Like, remember, he said, this child of humanity is within us. And so that to me is the main takeaway, right? This idea that we're not separated from God. We're not separated from Christ. I know sometimes we can feel that way. I know emotionally we can feel like, oh, God, where are you? And, feel like God is far away. And I think our emotions can sometimes make us feel that way. But the truth is, the reality is, no matter what you feel, no matter what your emotions tell you, what Jesus is telling you, and he says it here in Mary, but he says it in many other places in many other ways, you could never be separated from it, right? And so what that tells you is, think of it this way. Think of it for yourself, right? Tell yourself this anytime you feel discouraged or separated from God or feel like God is far away. Just tell yourself this, remind yourself of this. God is closer to you than your own heartbeat. God, the breath of God is in your lungs every time you take a breath. And in fact, between now and eternity, which you'll never die. None of us are ever going to die, right? Your time in this body might end, but when it does, you're going to just awaken even more than you can even imagine, to this awareness of this oneness. So all that you will ever know and experience in your experience of existence is to experience more and more and more with every passing day, more of the nearness of Christ, more of the fullness of God. It'll only get more. It'll never get less. And so that's where we're headed. That's where your life is headed. Your existence is headed. That's the truth of your existence and your connection with God. God will never. This is why God says, "I will never leave you. I'll never forsake you." It's impossible.
Thank you so much. That's beautiful, and especially in this time where it seems like it could make you seem like hope is lost.
Yeah.
Because there's real pain that's happening, and I think now is the time more than ever that we embrace, embody, and learn, understand. We're kind of in my private community. We're going through Spiritual Warrior, if you're familiar with it. And because one of the things is that book, it just really talks about you and what you can do with understanding you, learning you, being able to focus, and be able to accept, right? Because it's like you can go through all this and you can get this book and get all these different things, but being able to accept who you are, work through your traumas.
Yeah.
One of the things that I know about all of our experiences in church is, like, I'm not sure how much it healed us of our traumas versus causing them.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
It caused a lot of trauma.
Yes.
And we pushed through a lot of that trauma and a lot of the dogma and a lot of the erasing of the female voice.
Yes.
And I think now is the time that we lift it up, right?
Yeah.
Did you discover in this any other very important female in this era that had anything to say?
You mean during the time frame of Mary, or you mean now?
Ooh, let's say during the time that just the discovery of, it's like you discovered the gospel of Mary and what was important, but I'm pretty sure it seemed like there were other women.
Yeah.
That were connected.
Well, yeah. I fully believe that there were, I think they were. I think the sad thing is how often, I think the gospel of Mary barely survived. It's carrying the battle wounds, I think there probably were many other women, right? That we just don't know their names. We don't know who they were, what they did. But I'm sure that they were out there. But I will say, like, for now, I mean, in my own life, right now, there are many women that I go to for wisdom, that I'm in awe of, who totally get it, who are totally help me and nourish me in my spiritual awakening. Well, Heather Hamilton, who wrote the foreword to my book, first of all, I mean, she has an incredible book called Returning to Eden. And that's why I went to her and asked her to write the foreword to this book. And she's amazing. I anytime I get to talk to her, I always come away just like, whoo, I feel good. Another one is my friend Angie von Slaughter. She and I have done a couple of courses together on creativity, and with artists and stuff. She's a songwriter and also a graphic designer, and just an amazing person, and I learned a lot from her. There's another lady named Melissa Denise, and she has an amazing YouTube channel. I think it's called Love Covered Life. And she just interviews people that have had near-death experiences, people that have mystical experiences, and talks about, helps them share their stories with people and share hope with them. And then she's also is somebody who in her life is really living it out. She's very open about the struggle she's going through, but also about how, trusting and believing that God is with her has gotten her through it, her and her family through these things. And then I have to say, my wife, she is, my wife has never written a book yet. I'm trying to get her to write one. And I'll just say this. I've published probably like 14 books so far. I have never published a single one of these books without her help, without her reading it through first, without her going through it and telling me, well, Keith, actually, you might want to say it this way, or, maybe include this story or don't do that. So she doesn't like me to call her out and say that she's like an editor or something or a co-writer, but I'll just say that I've never published a book that she didn't have her fingerprints on in a pretty
I
big
don't
way.
think you would be able to do it.
No, I couldn't. I know. I
mean,
really
honestly, just regardless, even if she didn't write it at all, just to have that, it could be lonely and dark when you're in this space of creating and pulling things out, and then there's somebody back there that still is like love you regardless.
That's exactly right. Yeah. So I learn a lot spiritually from my wife all the time.
She loves you no matter what. You know what I mean? Oh, look, babe, I wrote a book. Okay, great. You know what I mean? Like, yeah. Babe, I didn't write a book. Okay, great.
Yeah. Well, she's really it's been beautiful. She's really been a partner with me on my own spiritual journey. What I think is, I'm so grateful because I know a lot of people that, one person in the marriage kind of starts progressing and starts changing their mind and deconstructing and all this stuff, but the other one doesn't. And that puts a strain on their marriage. I even know people that have gotten divorced over this stuff. And I just want to say, I'm super grateful. I'm so fortunate that every step I made, every corner that I turned, my wife, Wendy, was right there with me. And I'm very grateful for that. In fact, sometimes I would have what I thought would be this huge epiphany, like, oh my gosh, like, Wendy, oh my gosh, I think this is, I show it to her and like tell her, wow, this is what I think I'm seeing. And she would just say, yeah. Like she already knew that. And I'd be like, did you already know this and you were just waiting for me to catch up to you or something? Like, but we were just always in step. We were always right there together. And I really appreciate that. So
that's awesome. We have another lady, female, who has been in some of the deconstructing spaces. I'm pretty sure you heard of Maddie Jo Kirst.
Yeah.
Was it Kausert, I believe?
Kausert. She's one of our, I published her book. She's one of our authors.
Oh, really? Okay, got you. You published the, what is it? God,
Sex, and Rich People.
Yeah. Okay, good. That's awesome.
How do you know Maddie Jo?
She's going to be on the show.
Oh, dude, you're going to have fun. She's great.
Yeah, she's going to be on the show.
Okay.
Which I don't know. Deidre?
That's next Wednesday. We're doing the recording.
Oh my gosh.
Okay, gotcha.
So tune in for that.
We're gonna most likely do a recording, and then that way I'm gonna just most likely I might as well just show it next Thursday. So that should be really good.
I'll definitely watch it.
That's gonna be fun. So man, I appreciate you for spending your time coming on live. Is there, Deidre, was there any questions that anyone have?
No questions. It looks like everybody was just enjoying and agreeing and processing the discussion. It was a great discussion.
Yeah. Thank you all so much. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. It's good to have you. Like I said, I have my copy already. Got my copy.
Did you have any comments, questions, things that you want to say?
No, I was just going to say, because you guys started getting into it towards the end about just talking about the influence of women. And I think,
Yeah.
even with like the Chosen series and things like that, the demystifying of,
Mm.
Who Mary Magdalene was,
Yeah.
all these narratives that are out. I think this is going to be so critical. I can't wait to read it, because it has been a systematic erasure
Yes.
of women's influence in society, period, across the board. So I'm excited to read this, because people don't even know, like, who's Mary? Was she, a sex worker? Was she they come up with all these different narratives.
Yeah.
When the truth is, she was one of the most trusted apostles of them all.
She was. That's exactly right. In the Gospel of Mary, that's actually something that Levi, the Apostle Levi, says. It's like, if Jesus has made her worthy, who are you to say anything else, right? And that's exactly right.
Exactly. So I'm excited, Keith. I can't wait to dig in and read.
Well, beautiful. Let me know what you think.
Yes, no problem. I sure will.
All
And I just want to let you guys know, Keith is on multiple different platforms. He's out there doing all of the work. He gets, the Heretic Happy Hour podcast. And then also, I think I have another, let me see what other link I have up here for you, because I put up a couple. Oh, Second Cup with Keith podcast. I'll put the banners up. But again, if you go follow Keith on social media, Keith Giles, whether it's Instagram or Facebook, you're going to see promos or any streams for this. But again, you can get the entire Quantum book series, which includes the Quantum Sayings of Jesus about the Gospel of Thomas, and the Quantum Gospel of Mary. You can get those directly on Amazon. And if you're not sure, you can just message me and I'll link you to it. But Keith is an amazing author, and I'm just excited to see the journey. And I love that you just keep disrupting and fighting the resistance, fighting the good fight.
That's what I'm going to do. That's
absolutely,
my goal.
Absolutely.
Yeah, thank you.
Awesome, so awesome. Well, I think that pretty much sums it up. We do have, and where are you at, Keith? What part of the country?
Right now, I'm living in El Paso, Texas.
Okay, so we're in the same time zone. I look at time zones.
Yeah, Mountain Time.
Oh, I'm in El Paso, Texas.
El Paso is the only part of Texas that is not on Central Time.
Wow.
So Texas, all of Texas is Central Time except El Paso. We're that farthest little corner of the triangle on the tip, way off to the left side of Texas.
Good. Yeah, that's interesting. So much to learn whenever it's just something can be so simple. You know what I mean? I went to the last time. It's been many years, but I went through El Paso when we were going to Juarez.
Yeah, I always say El Paso is a great town to drive through. Driving through.
Well, that's awesome, and we will keep you tuned in to what with Maddie. I didn't know her book was published on your.
Yeah, very proud of that book and of her. She's wonderful. I think she's great. So yeah, I'm very excited you're going to be talking to her.
It'd be great. Keith is there. Sometime I'll do this, and I mean, you're good at it. Like just hearing you, and so I would love to get at least 60 seconds or 2 minutes of your time, whether it be a prayer or a meditation, but just you sit there when you sit there and talk about some of these things, when you're just flowing, it is a gift.
Thank you.
So I love to help the people as they listen to be able to close their eyes and, hear some words, even if you had some excerpt you wanted to read, but just being able to, leave the people with something,
Yeah, thank you. Well, I will do this. So my book, The Quantum Gospel of Mary, first half of the book is talking about the Gospel of Mary. The second half of the book is talking about a Valentinian text from the Nag Hammadi called the Gospel of Truth, which is not a lot of people have never heard of it. I think it's one of the most beautiful things. I'm so glad it wasn't lost. That somebody put it in a jar and it was discovered in Nag Hammadi. And so, what's beautiful about the Gospel of Truth is it really is it's a very poetic description of God as Father. It talks about God and God's infinite sweetness. I love the phrases it uses when it talks about God. And there's a beautiful passage. It's so funny because I marked this. I didn't know you were going to ask me this.
Well, before he does that, I want you guys to, if you're sitting, I know some of y'all in bed, a lot of people watch on TV, YouTube, but just go ahead and just embody this. You can just relax, close your eyes, and be able to feel this, take this in. Go for it, Keith.
All right, here we go. So I'm just going to read this part from the book. The author of the Gospel of Truth defines error as mankind's inability to comprehend the incomprehensible God. This error is what drove mankind away from God, and God's response to this was to send the Christ to reveal the truth to everyone. However, when those blinded by error encountered Christ, their response was violent, and the end result was that they nailed the messenger to the tree. What they didn't realize was that God made this same tree the tree of the knowledge of the Father, and Jesus became the fruit of the knowledge of God, the very thing that allowed humanity to see and know the incomprehensible and unknowable God. As it says in the Gospel of Truth, chapter 4, this is the good news of the one whom they seek, revealed to those filled through the mercies of the Father. Through the hidden mystery, Christ shone to the ones in the darkness of forgetfulness. He enlightened them and showed them a way. The way he taught them is truth. Because of this error, they pursued him, and they were distressed and left barren. He was nailed to a tree and became the fruit of the Father's knowledge. It did not cause destruction when it was eaten, but it caused those who ate it to come into being and to find contentment within its discovery. And Christ discovered them in himself, and they discovered Christ in themselves. The uncontainable, the unknowable Father, the one who is full and who made all things. All things are in him, and all things have need of him. So I'll leave you with that. I love that image of how Christ discovers himself in us, and we discover ourselves in Christ.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much. I will let you go. We're just going to do some little bit of announcements and what we got going this weekend, but I won't hold you.
All right. Well, thank you so much, both of you.
Thank you so much.
Malachi, God bless you. Thank you.
And you guys you'll have some book sales.
Yes. All right. Cool. Thank you. Thanks, everyone. Appreciate
Take care, Keith. That was wonderful. That felt good. That felt real good. Yeah.
Woo. I love it. I love it. I wanted to make sure that people know, of course, I think this weekend. Is it this weekend? Aren't we on this Saturday?
I feel like we did Sunday. Is it this week? I think you're right.
Saturday, right? Because I did Sunday.
Yeah, we did this special Sunday gathering, but we are back this Saturday, 9:30 Central, 10:30 Eastern, for our bi-weekly Zoom gathering exclusively in the Patreon community. Let me get if you want to join the Patreon community to get access to that, let me pull that up. Normally I have that, but I got caught up in what Keith was saying there. Go to Patreon, type in Expanded Consciousness Community, and paid tiers get access to that exclusive bi-weekly gathering. It's a sacred space. We are working on Spiritual Warrior. I don't know if you still want to continue that this week on Saturday's gathering, but either way, it's a sacred space where we get to dig a little deeper, ask questions and share space and hold space with one another. So join if you can.
Yes, it's been amazing. My journey through this spiritual warrior has been amazing. That's Sasha, everybody.
Yes, and Sasha always makes her debut at some point.
Miss Rose says that did feel good. Awesome. There's just looking at the comments. Phyllis said, "Thank you."
Yes.
Yeah, thank you. Most definitely. Miss Gwen. Awesome. Guys, and gals, if you will. I appreciate you. I thank you for just sticking in with me with this process of building. Sometime it could feel like, where are you going, myself? Where am I going with it? And you're bringing people along, and it's wonderful in terms of being able to connect, and community is really important for all of us. And I'm not, what would I say? When it comes to numbers of people, I think, there's 24 of you watching right now. But what I really want to hold space for and make sure that it's just not another thing that you're doing, not another show, not just another thing that you're adding to your list. But I want this to be something that you truly feel a part of, a community that is there for you, and you're there for it too. You're a part of it. And so if there's anyone out there that would like to just see what the Patreon community is, see what we have going on, if you message me or message Deidre, we can make that happen, just so you can be invited, so you can see what's going on. But I'm here to say that, if there's anything that suggestions or anything that you really needing, especially when it comes to your transformation, when it comes to who you're becoming. And I think more important than anything, as Keith was saying, is really digging into that oneness of who we are. I'm not sure if any person out there, if you really dedicate it with your meditations or dedicate it with who you are becoming. So we have these guests and different people to give different voices and get different understandings, and different connections to the divine and the divine self. I will say that I think there's probably, maybe 10, let's see, something like that. Maybe 13 people have bought Beyond Belief. And there's still more that's going to come with those people that purchased that. It's before I release it. I plan on releasing it everywhere, just so people can still download it. August 31st, I'll be 49. So that's most likely when I'll do that. If you go to malachigross.com, that the album's on there. There's a link for the expanded consciousness on there. And I'm working on a link for explaining what affirmation is, affirmation music. I'm also going to have a link to my premium coaching, various levels, for that. But I just wanted to say something to you about how much I appreciate you. But at the same time, I would like to know more about you and what you have going on and what you are looking for in this life. You know, you can come to these places and these spaces and you can always hear about what somebody else is talking about, and it may resonate with you. But we're all experiencing some really interesting times, and it can be hard, very hard. We talk about how it's divine, if you will, and it's, you know, an awakening and everything else. But it can it can be tough. Man, it can be tough. I'll tell you, like, when you have people and you have friends that are connected to both parties, and some of them have a feeling like, you know, I think Trump is doing a good thing for this, or Trump is doing a good thing, you know, and they truly believe it. But then you turn and you see families being tortured by people that don't identify themselves with masks, and they're just coming in and, you know, no criminal history on, I think. And when I say criminal history, they're talking about like a ticket, you know, but no criminal history. I seen a guy on the news in Tulsa who was, I think he was from some parts of Asia. I mean, he might Vietnamese or something, but he was the main person that was the breadwinner in the house. He had kids, and they don't know anything. They don't know where he went. He doesn't have any crimes. They just took him. So the families, they're gonna have to sell the house, because they live here, and they're gonna have to figure it out. And so we could be all super duper spiritual and talk about our awakening, but also when you're not being affected, it's a little easier, or it's out of sight, out of mind, if you will. So let's be cognizant of people, and I know we are in our community, and let's make space. I'm meditating every day, 20 minutes a day, and sooner or later I'll probably put a time frame on it so everyone else can join me, so that we can make not just space for ourselves and be clear with who we are, but also making space for other people, right, that are going through something and experiencing life. So I appreciate all of you, and look forward to seeing more people jump on the Patreon. Even if you jump on the free side, I'm still going to put more messages and more things to people free, and then we have the other things that, you know, that we're developing. So I love you. I appreciate you. And everything that you do within this community currently right now actually helps with everything I got going on, right? 100%. This is, for the most part, all that I'm doing. So I'm gonna keep doubling down, making things better, and hopefully being able to serve. I appreciate all y'all that are out there, right? And for those who come here, you don't comment, that's cool too. That is 100%. You know, we're gonna be here back again next Thursday, 8:30. You don't want to miss it. Because most likely what I'll do is play the video of his author, which Maddie.
Yeah, Maddie Jo.
Maddie Jo Kalser. And she has a book that is God, Sex, and Rich People. And it's about a young lady that was, I think, raised in like Springfield, Missouri, and conservative, what is it, evangelical, hardcore. She moves to New York, becomes a nanny, and really begin to connect to who she is. And she's very, very, very open, right, to her sexuality, to her presence of who she is, knowing who she is. And she calls things out in her book. From what I've read online is amazing, but her online socials are amazing. So I will play that next week. And when we do the recording will be next Wednesday. And that is going to be at what time?
9 a.m.
So 9 a.m. Central.
Eastern.
So that's 8
a.m. Central.
Okay, that'll work out. That's perfect. So I'll be looking at my schedule. Wait, did I schedule that right? Because I still have kids. I'll be forgetting. Like, wait, you still got kids? And they're not kids.
Yeah, so I have it 9 a.m. Eastern.
So that's fine. That just lets everyone that's in the Patreon know, right? Go sign up so you could be a part. We can have at least, a few of you people that, wake up and get up early. So, Miss Marie, that's cool. She says, I've been reading more because of expanded consciousness. Thank you. And Mrs. Mother White says she says, awesome direct discussion. Thank you, Miss Mother White. Thank you so much. Is there a song which y'all would like to end on? We're going to end on a song here. I'm going to pick one. We're going to end, and we'll see y'all next week. I love y'all, and I appreciate you. Oh, man. I love Release the Blame. I love Miracles. I don't know. Abundance Flow. Lay It Down. I know DJ's going to want to Release the Blame.
Like, or Learning to Be. Those two. I'll always be like, Learning to Be.
Yeah. We're gonna release it. We're gonna release it. We're gonna release it. We're gonna release it.
If it's Jesus, Buddha, Krishna, or Mohammed, just know, my friend, God is with you. No matter the name, no matter the faith, God is within, moving through grace. Born from a world of love, no shame. We all feel it when we hear our name. Our name is love, our name is peace. Serenity in what we believe. So when you call my name, I will not fear. Love is the answer, it's always near. No power to blame, no guilt, no shame. Just let love flow and break the chain. Told what to believe, yet deep inside we know God is love, no matter where we go. Oh, let me take this moment, no fear, no shame, to stand in love and release the blame. Release the blame. Release the blame. Yeah. Choosing the path we must embrace. The love is the answer, for heaven's sake. Can we let go and the hate release the pain. Deep inside, we're all the same. Oh, this is where we choose our fate, blindly accepting love not the same. But you have a chance to go within, and I know that God is a part of all of us, my friend. Oh, it's in you, it's in me. Love is the answer, no matter what they say. God is around, no matter the fate. No more division, no more the pain. God is within, always the same. So go within, my friend, be still. God is within, and always will. Love is the answer, no matter what they say. God is with us, guiding the way, the way. I was raised in the echoes of sermons and signs, told who I was, what to believe, how to walk the line. Kneeled at the altar, searching for grace, but all I found was fear wrapped up in faith. But something deep inside kept calling me. A whisper in the dark said you are free. Not in the rules, not in the chains, but in the love that calls my name. Learning to love myself, trust myself, even when I think I'm wrong. Learning to be set free, learning to be, learning just to be. No longer bound by the weight of my past. Took off the guilt, let it burn in the ash. I don't need permission to stand in the light. God ain't a place, God is inside. God is inside. Something deep inside keeps calling me. A whisper in the dark says you are free. Not in the rules, not in the chains, but in the love that knows my name. Learning to love myself, trust myself, even when I think I'm wrong. Learning to be set free, learning to be, learning just to be. Deep inside keeps calling me. A whisper in the dark says you are free. Not in the rules, not in the chains, but in the love that knows my name. Learning to love myself, trust myself, even when I think I'm wrong. Learning to be set free, learning to be